This is my part 2 response to Esplin227. I apologize for this second part being late. I've been really busy last week and I haven't been able to find time to make videos. So I'm hoping to get this done, get to you as soon as I can. So let's get started. Now I'm going to address one point. You seem to have a problem with the whole notion of why I don't take comparisons of God with the flying spaghetti monster or Santa seriously. You seem to have a big problem with that. I do not take those comparisons seriously. Here's why. Main reason is by the end of the day, these comparisons end up boiling down to a semantic game. They are useless comparisons to an idea of what theists are claiming. Theists are claiming that God is a necessary being that created the universe. That is what we're claiming. The flying spaghetti monster or Santa does not compare because they are not necessary beings. If you want to demonstrate that they are necessary beings, like we're claiming that God is, you have to demonstrate that Santa Claus, the flying spaghetti monster, are timeless, spaceless, immaterial beings that created the universe. By the end of the day, it is a semantic argument. Because if you're one other thing I want to point out. The flying spaghetti monster is a parody. A somewhat amusing parody, but a parody nonetheless. It doesn't answer any questions regarding what we're claiming to be at the universe. Let me give you a brief understanding of what we are claiming what God is. We are claiming that a higher intelligent agent created everything, the universe, all the way to our solar systems, to the Earth. That is what we're claiming that God is. That is what we call God. By the end of the day, when you're trying to compare God to the flying spaghetti monster, you are playing a semantic game. Because what we are calling God, you're calling Santa and the flying spaghetti monster. If you want to say that God didn't create the universe, and say that the flying spaghetti monster or Santa created the universe, you need to demonstrate that by philosophical proofs. Now, I would recommend a podcast by Jimmy Akin that does a very good job of boiling this really ridiculous argument to its really absurd notions. I don't agree with him in terms of the legality of teaching intelligent design, but in terms of his point about the flying spaghetti monster, I think it's a valid point. Now, I do want to play one specific clip that summarizes how I feel about the whole comparison thing.
I was simply saying that this is not a mere matter of speculation, that there's more than a tiny bit of evidence on the table.
But is he saying
evidence for what?
Evidence for a beginning of the universe.
Yes.
Well, we know that. Nobody disputes.
All right, well, that's what I'm offering in this first argument, is the evidence.
But because there's a beginning doesn't imply a God.
It does if the first premise is true, that whatever begins to exist has a cause. It logically follows that
but the cause hasn't got to be God.
Well, remember I gave an argument for thinking that this cause is timeless, spaceless, immaterial, enormously powerful, and personal.
I think it's a computer.
Well, that wouldn't... computers are designed by people.
No, this is a self-designing computer.
Timeless.
Timeless.
Well, that's a contradiction in terms.
Why is it timeless? What's contradictory about it?
A computer has to function. It takes time.
No, this is a special computer.
Yeah, but it has to be logically coherent.
Oh, it's logically coherent?
Yes, you have to be logically coherent.
Oh, no, this computer is amazing.
No, besides, it would have to be, as I said, a personal being.
No.
A computer is a physical
Not this computer.
Object.
Oh,
well, then,
no.
Okay, see, what you're doing is what you're calling a computer is really God. A non-physical, It's just another word if you rob it of all the attributes that make it a computer.
Say what you want about William Lane Craig, and you can say that's a cheap shot he did in that clip, but he's right. He's absolutely 100% right there. If you're going to compare God to, like, say, Santa Claus or the Flying Spaghetti Monster, you're going to have to you're going to end up playing semantic games and pretty much deriving the meaning behind the word God and the meaning behind the word Flying Spaghetti Monster. That is why I do not take comparisons of God of, say, Santa or the Flying Spaghetti Monster or the Tooth Fairy seriously, because I consider it intellectual laziness. Now, of course, if you actually seriously want to argue that it wasn't a higher intelligence that we call God that created the universe, but was instead either a guy in a red suit or a big giant flying spaghetti monster that created the universe, you have to demonstrate that's the case, and that it wasn't a god that created the universe, but instead was either Santa Claus or the flying spaghetti monster. Good luck with that. Now, I'm going to spend the rest of this video covering more about your understanding of rationality. Now, I know you say in the video that you're going to stop using the term the domain of rationality, but I want to cover this one more time so you understand where I'm coming from. When you say something along the lines that atheists have the domain of rationality, that does not determine whether you are right. Here, in one of your previous videos, EvoGenVideos made a very, very good point, and you never addressed this. You have to address this if you're going to claim that atheists are somehow more rational than theists. I'm going to repeat what he said. He says this: but how do you know which one is being rational? Because you're just stating that one of them is rational and the other isn't. It really has nothing to do with how well constructed or sound their arguments are. It's based on who's making which arguments. It's called a genetic fallacy. Atheists aren't above fallacious reasoning. You never address that. You have been committing a genetic fallacy. Just because someone is an atheist, or just because someone disbelieves in God, that doesn't automatically mean they have the domain of rationality, as you used to call it. It does not mean that just because someone believes in a different way of gaining knowledge about the world, it does not mean they are less rational because they believe in something that is supernatural. That is not how rationality works. Rationality is not a atheist-specific thing. It is a tool used by humanity to reach towards conclusions. One specific issue you have is when we come back to the issue of how Christians define faith. And Christians rightfully have defined faith as belief, faith based on knowledge. You seem to have a big problem with that because you continually claim that faith is not based on knowledge. That isn't the point. When Christians believe that faith is based on knowledge, they are saying that their faith is based on the current data, such as scripture, such as history, testimony, and so on and so on. That is what they would consider knowledge. And based on that knowledge, they would say they would put their faith on that as being reliable. It seems to me that the issue is not whether or not faith is based on evidence. The real issue, as how I understand it, is that it's an issue not on faith, but on the issue of epistemology. A lot of atheists, when they're trying to say they're being rationalist in a debate, when you look at their epistemology, they're not being rationalist, they're being empiricists. That's how I think you're running on things. And you can clarify if I misunderstood your position. But if I understand your position correctly, you're not a rationalist, you're an empiricist. There is a difference between being a rationalist and an empiricist. Now, they're not mutually exclusive. You can be rationalist and empiricist, but many atheists who try to say that they're being rationalist, they're in reality are being empiricists. Now, I will post a link in the description box. You never mentioned, and I posted this in my original video to you. You never addressed this, but I'm going to post it again. I would highly recommend you read it, because it goes into the difference, into the whole classic debate between empiricists and rationalists. This has been going on in philosophical debate, this philosophical circles, as what is the best way to gain knowledge, whether through empiricism or rationalism. I would say I am a rationalist based on the philosophical definition, because I say I believe rationalism is a better way of gaining knowledge than empiricism. Not to say that empiricism is a bad thing, but if I were to define my epistemology as of this video, I would say I lean heavily towards rationalism. That, like, a famous example of a rationalist would be Immanuel Kant, and he was one of the proponents of rationalism. Rationalism isn't strictly an atheist thing. It's an actual epistemological position. Now, before I end this video, I want to address that one last thing you brought up at the end of your video, is that you mentioned the prophecy of Isaiah 7:14, and that actually translates to young woman or young maiden. I'm not sure why you brought this up to begin with, because I never once mentioned anything about that prophecy, and it's not even part of our discussion to begin with, so I don't know why you brought this up anyway. Now, you try to say that, well, I'm wrong about it being virgin when it really means young woman and all that stuff, when I never really said it did. I never made that argument. And to make it very clear, yes, it does mean young woman. I've already knew that. I never said it meant virgin. It's not a big secret within biblical scholarship that means young woman or young maiden. I don't know why you even brought that up to begin with. So it doesn't pose a question. It doesn't pose a problem at all for Christian theology. So it's only a problem for, like, the hardcore fundamentalists, but it's not a problem at all for Christianity. So I'm not sure why you brought that up to begin with. Anyway, that's it for now. You can have the last word, because I have other things I gotta worry about. I don't have as much time to do back and forth and go ad nauseum. So if you're still interested in having group stickam, let me know, because we can discuss these matters a little more in depth if we're in a group on stickam. Anyway, that's about it. Take care. Atheists make this claim that they're being the more rationalists